Hi there folks, and welcome to Flipping Hack Business, Flip Learning for AQA A-Level Business Studies. This is video number 2 in the Unit 2 Leadership, Management and Decision Making. Okay, so I'm going to have quite a short video today. So the first thing that we're going to look at is Theory X and Theory Y by Douglas McGregor. Now, he was a psychologist who basically came up with a theory that there are two different types of workers. So if we look in the middle here, you've got the sphere. So this is like different kind of attitudes, directions, responsibilities, what motivates people and creativity, just so that you can split them apart and you can actually look at the two different types. Now, Theory X is the lazy worker. So this type of worker dislikes work, they find it boring, and where they can, they will actually avoid it at all costs. This sort of worker must be forced or coerced into compliance. So it could be that they're using extra money, or they could be using like threats, such as you're going to lose your job. Then it needs to be directed. So this type of worker needs to have someone to actually guide them and say, right, okay, you know, you've got this to do, you've got that to do, you must do it. And they'll try and avoid responsibility themselves. They're usually motivated by fear. So that could be lack of money or lack of job security. So basically, if you don't do it, I'm going to fire you. And then there's very little creativity, except when they're actually trying to get around the rules and be lazy. Now, that is in contrast to Theory Y workers. Now, these need to work. They want to take an interest, and they will enjoy what they are doing. They direct themselves to a target, so they don't just need someone telling them where to go. They can actually move themselves. They're very motivated that way. They thrive on responsibility, so they want to be in charge. They want to develop themselves. And then they are motivated by self-development and the contribution to the world. So they actually want to make a difference. They want to be part of society. And this allows them then to be very creative. So if they're given the recognition for it and they're given the opportunity to actually go out there, change their work around, then they will go and do it. Now, it's important to understand these, because then you need to link it back to what kind of manager you would actually look at being. So with Theory X, then really it's very much an autocratic, maybe paternalistic attitude for management, where you really just sort of want to give them the task, tell them to get on with it, and then keep checking them, keep on them. Where Theory Y is more your sort of democracy and laissez-faire kind of attitude, where really you just sort of maybe want to guide them, but ultimately they're the ones who are actually going to be taking charge of their own workload. So why modern businesses leadership is moving away from autocratic styles. I mean, if we go back and have a look at the Theory X, Theory Y, then, you know, back in the sort of 50s, 60s, then there very much was that kind of worker. I mean, workers tended to go and work in one place, they would do one or two jobs, and then that would be it. Whereas now we've had a big, huge change. So it's no longer just men working at home. Very much it's split between men and women. So there's big changes in society's values. So the women just don't just wait at home anymore. We've got a much better educated workforce. So levels of literacy are high. People are forced now. Well, not forced, but they are encouraged to stay on to do further education, go on to university. There can also be a bigger focus in the need for soft HR skills, as we've realized that more and more people are motivated through personal development, through being looked after by their employers. Then we see productivity increase along with that. We've got big changes in workplace organization. So again, we've got de-layering. So more people have got responsibility. So they haven't just got manager after manager after manager. We actually see that there's a general change in that management levels are lower with bigger, wider spans of control. So that's the number of people who they're in charge of. And with that, it's harder to police. So you need to have a bit more allowance for a bit of give, a little bit of creativity when it comes to your job role. There's greater workplace legislation, so people are being looked after. So no longer can a business just go, nope, you're fired and get out. They've actually got to look after their employees. And of course, coming back to that, you can then find that people might sue for constructive dismissal or any other reason to try and get something out of the company if they do, or if they are felt to leave. And then pressure for greater employee involvement. People want to have a greater task in their company. They want to have a bigger hand. And so there is that pressure from the employees themselves to develop those skill sets. That's what they want. People want to progress. They want to be managers. So the second theory that we'll look at very quickly is the Tannembaum-Schmidt Continuum. Now, this is a method that Tannembaum and Schmidt came up with, which looks at the level of authority that is held by the manager compared to that of their subordinates. Subordinates, of course, being the hierarchy, anyone below you in that hierarchy. So they came up with this continuum here, which if you look, it goes from, we've got the red line going all the way there, going all the way up. And at the very left-hand side, we've got very much the use of authority. So you can see that this top section here is the authority of managers, and this bottom section is the area of freedom for subordinates. So over here, we can see that the managers have got all the power. All the authority is over this side. And this is very much a tell management style, where management makes all the decisions and they just announce it. So it's very, very autocratic. So you do this, you will do that. There's very, very little say or input from actual employees. Then we go to sell, where the manager sells decisions. So this is a bit more paternalistic. So they are telling them that this is the decision that's been made, but these are the reasons that we're actually making them. So you can see the benefits as well. Then in the middle, we've got consult. So this is very much moving into sort of democracy. So the manager presents ideas and invites questions. So therefore you can question it. Maybe there would be some information taken on board. Manager presents initial decision subject to change. So here's what we're going to do, but this could change around. So if there's any new ideas come up, we might take them on. Manager presents problems, gets suggestions, and makes decisions. So there's very much your democracy right there. Here's the problem. Let's get as many ideas as we can, and then we'll make those decisions. And then on the right-hand side, where you can see that, again, the area of freedom for subordinates is very, very high. You've got very much the share attitude. So manager defines limits and asks groups to make decision. So that is sharing the responsibility. Or they could take a very much a laissez-faire attitude, and manager allows group to function independently, but within defined limits. Remember that laissez-faire, even though it's leave alone, it doesn't necessarily mean that a manager would just disappear off. They would still offer all that support and everything as well. So Tannembaum-Schmidt, as we can see here, so tells, leader identifies problems, makes decision, and announces to subordinates. So it's very much, this is what is going to happen. Sells, makes decision, but attempts to overcome resistance, so it makes it easier, gets people a little bit involved. Consults, so leader identifies problems and presents it to the group, then they get suggestions, then finally shares, leader shares the problem, gives the decision, and then lets the group go with it. Okay, nice short one for you today. Thanks very much for watching. For more information, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and then leave any constructive criticism in the comments below. And then, of course, video 3 will follow very shortly. Bye.